Welcome to Discovery Watch with John Kaiser.
I'm your host, Jim Goddard. Welcome back to the show, John.
Jim, pleasure to be back on the show.
John, whatever happened to DLP Resources and its Sullivan II hunt?
Well, Jim, I started covering DLP Resources in late June of last year after they optioned 75% of PJX's DD project in the southeastern part of BC, where it's prime territory for finding another Sullivan deposit. That's 160 million tons of 5 to 6% each of lead zinc plus 2 ounces of silver per ton. And Teck had this DD property under option for a couple of years, drilled a very deep hole, quit in late 2019 after getting quite deep and ending up in a gabbro sill. And gabbro sills can be like the end of your quest in the Sullivan II hunt, or it could be just something that passed through. Well, DLP Resources, DLP stands for David Leo Pegan, who's a specialist in Sullivan-type systems, and especially in that whole Purcell Basin in southeastern British Columbia. And he had assembled this private company to get his best projects, put it in there. It's backed by Jim Stapula and his whole network. They'd done an RTO of a CPC in late 2018. But when this DD project became available, they optioned it. They extended the hole 300 meters. There was no Sullivan II present, but they did see evidence that, there's something going on here. And most importantly, they did define the depth of the Sullivan time horizon, which is between the middle and lower Aldrich Formation in this area. And then they did a magnetotelluric survey over that property and extended it to the northeast. And when they got the results, they discovered this northeast linear trend of MT anomalies, highly conductive zones. These are usually pyrrhotite, which is just an iron sulfide, but the Sullivan deposit itself has pyrrhotite with it. Most of the time, there's no zinc or lead sulfides associated with the pyrrhotite, and they ended up with these 3 targets that were just a bit to the north, actually 4 targets, just a bit to the north of about 2 or 3 other holes that had been drilled. And even the hole that Teck spotted, had it done this MT survey, it would probably not have drilled that precise location. So they figured this trend where this pyrrhotite, these sulfides formed, it's a bit to the north. And they resumed drilling in February of this year. The first hole, I don't quite understand why, but they tested something to the northwest called the Jerry Vent. That's higher up in the system. It's not part of the Sullivan time horizon. That was a bust. But they recently reported the results of the second hole, which had been started in April on the first of the MT targets. And this hole was also a bust, but not in the technical sense. The MT anomaly is caused by pyrrhotite, and it's not associated with a high-grade sphalerite or galena, the zinc and lead sulfides. But within that same vicinity, they confirmed, yes, the Sullivan time horizon is present, and but they observed fragmentals, and they also got snippets of low-grade zinc-lead mineralization. And this is part of the whole vectoring process. Say, okay, we are in the right territory. We're on the peripheries of it. We need to march in the northeast direction and tackle these other 3 targets on the Moby Dick and then Nazu claims that they staked and optioned. But they're not going to do that until the end of August. They are now taking on the Hungry Creek project. And when David Pegan put those projects into the company, he had 2 types of targets. One is the SEDEX Sullivan type of a target, and the other is a sediment-hosted copper cobalt silver system that's in the Creston Formation, not the Aldrich Formation, but the younger Creston Formation. And the American equivalent is the Revit Formation, which in western Montana hosts the Montanore project. And that's a pretty impressive project, 136 million tons of 0.78% copper and 60 grams per ton silver. And Hecla now owns it. Its problem is that it should be open pit mine, but it's in this wilderness area, and they have to do this underground access and mine it as an underground mine. But in the Hungry Creek area, which is about 40 kilometers west of the Sullivan deposit, where Creston Formation is mapped, they do not have any such problems there. So they find a near-surface, bedded, strata-bound copper, cobalt, silver deposit similar to Montanore, then they have a winner on their hand. So the reason this property became of interest was that a prospector called Sean Kennedy had some claims in the area, found something interesting. The DLP had staked a large land position into. They optioned the property from the Kennedy Group, and they did some more field work, and they found these high grade, up to 5% copper sulfide boulders. Now they have these VLF targets, conductors in the valley bottom, but the valley bottom has about 50 meters of fill, all this garbage that's rolled down from the mountain ranges, the mountain sides. So in terms of bedrock, it is completely blind. So they are going in there with a couple of 400-meter holes. They're really just geological context setting holes. They want to understand what does the geology look like under here. And of course, they hope to find a bedded source for these boulders. The concern is that these boulders come from a structurally controlled deposit, a cross-cutting vein of some sort that cuts through the stratigraphy. That's never going to be a mine. It's what southeastern British Columbia is famous for, all these like high-grade vein-like zones that were great 150 years ago but are inconsequential today. And the whole area there in southeastern BC, I mean, we've already got the Sullivan deposit. On the U.S. side, we have some tremendous deposits. If they were to be able to confirm that, yes, these sediment-hosted deposits, 1% copper, 2 ounce per ton silver are present in this setting, that would ignite a brand new exploration boom. So they'll tackle that probably mid-July, be done by the end of August, and then they'll return to the DD property to drill the next deep hole. This one's going to be a straight vertical hole into the bullseye target to see if this is the one. They're not going to quit on this play until they've tested all three of the remaining MT targets, because you never know which is the one that also ended up having zinc, lead, and silver mineralization as part of the pyrrhotite sulfide body. And the thing they have in the background, which they announced in May, which kind of disturbed people like me who were into this company because we like Pegan's ideas, we like the Sullivan 2 hunt, we like the monster hunt in southeastern British Columbia. The exploration VP, Ian Gendall, he was familiar with a project in Peru called the Aurora, and he was able to get them a deal. It requires them to spend $3 million and pay $3 million over 4 years, but the 4-year deadline doesn't start ticking until they get a permit for the project. This project's been around for a while. It's a copper moly project, no gold or silver. It's in southern Peru. It was explored by Bear Creek when David Lowell was involved with it, and then by another company called Vina. They drilled 13 holes, and what it is, it's a porphyry system whose upper 200 meters have been leached. There's a chalcocite blanket down in the 200 to 300 meter range, and then there's another 100 meters or so of 0.5% to 1% copper. There's only 3 holes that penetrated into that, and the company says, yes, this is hopeless to be an open pit situation. It's going to have to be an underground block caving operation. The option is relatively cheap. The about $2.3 million payment isn't due until the end of 4 years, and for now it's an option on the copper price, but it's also an option on what's happening in Peru right now. There was a presidential election between 2 evils that everybody's debating which is the lesser of. One is a a communist socialist called Pedro Castillo from sort of the rural part of Peru, where he's developed a populist following amongst the various indigenous group. And the other is Keiko Fujimori, the daughter of the former dictator of the country who ended up in jail. And she appears to have lost the election, but she's borrowing a page from Trump's playbook and is declaring, it's false. This needs to be thrown out, needs to be done again, or even better, just cancel all those votes that went for Castillo. So the country is in a bit of a mess. The other juniors that are still operating there are going along, still doing. Their stocks haven't really collapsed yet. The thinking is, well, even if Castillo is sworn in as the new president, his party represents only about 30-35% of Congress, and he won't be able to pass all the stuff he has talked about in the past, such as nationalizing the mining industry, or creating super royalties, or big windfall profit taxes, sort of borrowing a page from Rafael Correa's idea of how Ecuador's mining industry should operate. So the hope now is that, maybe higher income taxes, they are relatively low, and what has been raised through taxation of mining has not been made available to the larger population, which is relatively poor. The other issue with Peru, of course, is COVID. It was one of the hardest hit countries. Even though they undertook a harsh lockdown measures, they still got nailed. They haven't yet recovered. They've got the Bolsonaro virus now variant circulating in the country. So it is still in a very difficult position. And if there is this government change, there'll probably be new permitting people in charge, so that will delay things. So we probably won't get this permit until the end of this year, by which time, hopefully, DLP Resources has elevated Hungry Creek to a level where we say, yes, conceptually, the sediment-hosted copper, cobalt, zinc, silver deposits are a reality for BC, and the DD has finally coughed up the long-awaited Sullivan 2 discovery, which, of course, that would be something worth several $1 billion. So the company continues to be a Discovery Watch candidate, mainly for the DD project, but we're keeping an eye on the Hungry Creek play. And, of course, if all this fails, they do have an advanced project. The group that's behind this is more experienced at marketing a story where they control the timeline, they control the news flow, the narrative, as opposed to a discovery exploration play where you're really at the mercy of what your drill bit encounters in the third dimension.
We'll have more with John Kaiser right after this.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome back. We're speaking with John Kaiser. John, why was Eskay Mining halted last Friday?
Well, we were all pretty excited because on June 28th, they had announced that drilling was underway on their property. There's 30,000 meters plus. They were still in the midst of doing the final interpretation of their property-wide SkyChem survey, but the initial focus was supposed to be the Jeff and TV areas where they had pulled some very high-grade gold-silver intersections last year with replacement-style mineralization of the sort that sits just below the seafloor. And they were going to start on the Jeff target, where they had pulled 35 meters of really good gold-silver mineralization, and they were going to just do a modest step-out down dip, and that shouldn't have taken long at all because all those holes last year were fairly shallow. And so the hope was that they pulled a hole 109, managed to get into the feeder of a system and just got, 50 plus meters of really beautiful looking rock, and that they were halted. The stock had jumped up on Wednesday, June 30th, to 280, which is what you might expect if somebody in the field happened to hear or see something and you get into town and away they go. But no, the news when it came out on Monday, it was that they had done a sharing deal with Seabridge Gold on the on a 12-kilometer access or $12 million access road, the Coulter Creek access road, which connects the Eskay Creek road that goes to the former 21B zone mine where Skeena is now active, and will go down south and connect to the KSM project, for which Seabridge in 2016 did a pre-feasibility study. It had an enormous capex of $5 billion. They used a relatively low base case price is $2.75 copper and 12.30 gold. So it didn't really meet the hurdles in an obvious manner. But it is a gigantic system. The copper grade's only about 0.2 something percent, and the gold grade is 0.8%. But it is one of the largest deposits in North America in terms of total volume of contained copper and gold. And so they also just this year acquired the Snowfield project next door from Pretium, and I guess they got tired of all the helicopter costs. Everything there is helicopter supported, so they're going to build this road. And somehow, and this is a head scratcher, they persuaded Eskay Mining to share the cost of a portion of this road, which passes through the Eskay Creek property. And of course, yes, if they have a discovery there, if this year's 30,000 meters of drilling deliver multiple new zones that need to be followed up with 100,000 meters of drilling over the next few years, then it will be good to have this road. And of course, Eskay Mining doesn't have $6 million for this road, whose building starts in July this month. So what Seabridge has done is done a convertible debenture for $6 million. So it's using its own $6 million to pay its costs to build, to pay for Eskay Mining's share of this road. And this converts into about 2.1 million shares at $2.80, and it includes 1.35 million warrants, which are going to be good for 3 years, exercisable between $2.80 and $3.20, something like that. And it seems more like a gift because Eskay Mining doesn't need this road this year. It won't be ready to help them this year. And we can't be guaranteed that they are going to find something truly significant where there would be tremendous savings using this road rather than helicopter to continue to explore for high-grade gold silver zones in this area. So it was a head scratcher. The stock has retreated because people were hoping a very early intersection showing, hey, we've got something very thick and interesting, maybe into the feeder of a 21B zone. But so far we don't have that. We're still hoping for a press release sometime this month, which lays out the scale and scope of all the geophysical targets that their SkyTem survey has generated. And of course, this program will run right into October, so there should be plenty of opportunity for press releases. But it was interesting looking at the map that Seabridge published with it, and it shows a circled area. And off to the west, there is something called Hubris Peak. And I just thought, I hope that is not an omen about how this season is going to turn out. Let's hope that Mac Balcom's instincts in doing a deal now where they get a piece of this road and access as a result, hopefully that instinct is correct and not a result of being overly optimistic that this is going to be the year where finally a major discovery is made on that 25-kilometer segment south of the original Eskay Creek property to the north.
We'll have more with John Kaiser right after this.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlan, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with John Kaiser. John, any word on how drilling went at Adamira's Cook Mountain project in Washington?
Well, the Cook Mountain project has been the focus of Adamira for several years now, since they took a fresh look at the whole area in geophysical terms. They operated the project 100%, had to fight all kinds of permitting battles along the way, and the focus has mainly been in the oversight property area which surrounds the former overlook and key the deposits that were mined before, and they did not have any fantastic success, but they started to understand better what really are the controls of the mineralization. It's not the limestones, the skarn and the limestone itself that's the primary gold host. It's more the contact with the clastic sediments where the gold associated with sulfides has piled up. And they were able to do a deal last year with Hochschild, a Peruvian mining company, which can earn 75%. It's quite a strong deal. And Hochschild has brought some of its expertise in different geophysical methods to bear. Last year they did these deep penetrating IP surveys, which generated new targets that were deeper. So in I think it was April or May, they started drilling in the western part of the Republic Graben, where they have the Lamefoot South and the Goodfoot properties, which were near the former Lamefoot mine, which is now depleted, cranked out 1 million or so ounces of gold. And they put out an announcement June 9th, sort of just a visual description. 2 holes were drilled into the Goodfoot targets and 2 holes into the Lamefoot targets. They encountered sulfides. In the case of the Lamefoot South, it was in the clastic sediments. It was more in the limestone and something else, a sheared portion of the Goodfoot property, but it was all pyrite sulfides, just an iron sulfide. So they have no idea. They didn't even include any graphics. They've had some bad luck in the past market, getting quite excited about, we have this, sulfide intersection where it's supposed to be, but then it doesn't run gold. So Mark Alibaba has decided, okay, this time I'm going to just pretend that they're duds until they aren't. And on the oversight project, they had 1 hole done when they put out that news release. They had another one underway. And that first hole was drilled in an area where the geophysics had said, yes, there's something there. And they did do a significant intersection at the target depth. And yes, sulfides were present, but also they mentioned that chalcopyrite and sphalerite, the copper and zinc sulfides, were present, were visually present. So if those are present in this type of setting, there probably is some gold and silver present also. So this is where they drilled this hole. It's in a new location within that overall configuration that they have there. If this runs a significant quantity of gold, this becomes an important new focus. But Mark figures maybe mid-July for the assays from these holes. They were planning to return on after July 4th to the property and do more drilling in the overlook area. They're also still working on the 100% owned Buckhorn 2.0 permitting issue. They need to file a plan of operations for the work that they want to do. That, of course, is going slowly. But we're still holding out hope that Mark Jones, who is the CEO of Crown Resources, which found the original crown jewel that Kinross mined out, he's on the board now of Adamira Minerals, and he's the one in the background now talking to Kinross, trying to see, can we do a data sharing deal? Can we buy all this data that you have? And Kinross did a tremendous amount of target generation work in the final years when they knew that the crown jewel, also known as the Buckhorn mine, was depleting. This was an underground mine. And they were set to do a monstrous drilling program, filed a big plan of operations, and that absolutely hit the wall, went nowhere. The jurisdiction within the U.S. Forest Service changed in the past year to the more eastern one, in which the Republic Graben projects of Adamira are located. And this is a Forest Service unit which is more in tune with the needs of so the industrial workers, ranchers, farmers, miners, as opposed to the other one, which is more in tune with the needs of the recreational sector. So getting the Buckhorn area moved into the other jurisdiction hopefully has made it easier. Hopefully Mark Jones can swing a deal with Kinross to get hold of all that data. That will still take 6 months of analysis and compilation to figure out, but it would save them a couple years of exploration work in terms of target generation if they could get that treasure trove of data collected by Kinross. And of course, it might take another 6 months to get a permit for this project. So the timing could be perfect if they can swing that deal. So we have hopefully news from the Lamefoot, Good South and Goodfoot targets in the western part of the Cook Mountain region, and also the overlook that these holes that they drilled have opened up a new sort of exploration path for Hochschild and for Adamira to chase for another overlook type deposit in that area.
John, thank you so much for the update.
You're welcome, Jim.
We've been speaking with John Kaiser, his website, kaiserresearch.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on Discovery Watch are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at howstreet.com. Discovery Watch is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.